So in the last video, you saw that we visited Boston, Massachusetts, and we both enjoyed it thoroughly. We loved Boston. We were there very, very briefly, only for one full day, but we absolutely enjoyed our time there. Well, something happened right before we got to Boston that I've been wanting to speak about, but I've just been waiting for the proper time. And what I've come to realize is that there is no such thing as the proper time to speak on things like this. That said, before I get into what I'm going to talk about in this video, I just want to make this disclaimer that everything that I say in this video is my opinion and my opinion alone. The facts that I'm going to talk about are facts, and facts don't care about feelings, and they apply to everyone. But my opinions about these facts are solely mine, so they have nothing to do with my girlfriend's opinions, they have nothing to do with my family's opinions, my friends' opinions, so on and so forth. Also, President Trump, if you're watching this, if you want to deport me after this, then by all means feel free to do so. In fact, I already have a destination in mind. I've already booked my ticket out of here, so I'm deporting myself. Don't even worry about it. But if you want to cover the cost of my flight, then by all means, I would love for you to do that. Now, speaking of Trump, I'm not gonna lie. In recent videos, and let me go ahead and get my girlfriend out of the frame completely because I don't even want any type of association between my message and her. Because again, she has nothing to do with this. But in recent videos, I have explicitly stated that I am apolitical. I am somebody who doesn't get involved in politics, and this isn't a PR thing. Okay, I'm the kind of person, I don't really care necessarily what the internet thinks about me if I'm speaking my truth. That said, I just felt like I was ill-informed to speak on political matters because I don't know much about policy. I'm not very well informed about that world. But at a certain point, someone has to speak out on these things. And listen, I have a platform, so I guess today it's going to be me. Before we went to Boston, we went to New York City. And while we were in New York City, we enjoyed ourselves. One of the things that we did was we went to Central Park in Manhattan, right across the street from Trump Tower, or at least one of the Trump Towers. Well, I don't know exactly what year it was, but sometime in the 1980s, there was an incident that occurred in Central Park. And I think my girlfriend, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that I even told her about this or she even knows about this. But basically, sometime in the 1980s, there was a murder and sexual assault that took place in Central Park. And to make a long story short, these 5 young black teenagers were arrested and tried for murder and convicted of murder. Turns out all 5 of them were innocent, and there's actually a documentary on Netflix about this called When They See Us. Really, really great documentary. But something that really stands out to me about that event is that while they were being prosecuted for this murder that they didn't commit, President Trump put out a full-page news ad in the newspaper calling for their execution. Calling for their execution. Let that sink in. These are 5 teenage boys who, again, we later found out that they were innocent. Calling for their execution. Now, look, I'm not a perfect person. I've done things in the past or said things in the past that I no longer stand by. Therefore, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Granted, that was a very big mistake to make, especially for someone who is now running the country that we're currently in as I film this video. But again, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I like to think that I'm somewhat forgiving because I know, again, I'm not perfect. And I don't expect anyone else to be perfect. And this happened many years ago. That was what? Almost 40 years ago, probably. So I never really held that against him, even though, in retrospect, I probably should have. Because what he did recently definitely let me know that that was not an aberration. That was not an anomaly. That was just a symptom of his character, of who he is as a person. So in the video where we were walking around Boston, in the Boston Common, and the area surrounding that, I mentioned that one of the things that Boston and Massachusetts as a whole is known for is education. And a big part of the reason why this is the case is because of Harvard University. Harvard is one of the most prestigious, if not the most prestigious, universities in the whole entire world. Out of the Ivy Leagues, it definitely elicits the most status. Now, whether it deserves that status or not, that's a whole different discussion for a whole different day. But Harvard is the kind of place where if you attend that school, your family's trajectory, your bloodline's trajectory changes. That's a fact. If you look at the average income for Harvard graduates, generally they make a lot more money. And it's not by coincidence. It's because, again, it's a storied institution that has housed or that has educated even some of our prior presidents, such as Barack Obama, for example. Well, basically, and look, I don't know all of the logistics of anything that I'm about to say. Again, I'm just speaking on what I've heard and what I've observed. But right before we got to Boston, so this was maybe a few days ago, and by the time you're watching this, a week and a half or so ago, Harvard University filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration. Now, what they filed the lawsuit for, I do not know. What I do know is that they were well within their right to do so. They were well within their right to do so. Trump, however, disagreed. Because what Trump turned around and did was he basically put out some sort of order or demand or request, whatever you want to call it. He basically told Harvard that they can no longer enroll international students. Now, I need you to understand the gravity of this. Okay, Harvard, again, is by and large America's most storied and prestigious educational institution, higher educational institution. Now, I'm a college dropout myself, but even I recognize that Harvard is a place, once again, that people go to change not only their lives, but their bloodlines' lives. And Trump decided that he wanted to weaken Harvard's influence on the world. As punishment, as revenge, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Again, I don't know all of the logistics, and I'm not claiming to be an expert on any of these affairs. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a college dropout who makes YouTube videos and likes to travel. That's pretty much it. And I have my opinions, whatever. But it's a fact. It is a cold, hard fact that Trump essentially made it such that Harvard could not enroll international students, at least for the foreseeable future. Now, thankfully, a federal judge, I don't know which one and I don't know how, but a federal judge turned around and blocked Trump's order for Harvard to no longer enroll international students. But the point isn't about the policy itself or any of that. This is more about Trump's character. What this tells me about Trump's character is that, look, this is somebody who is running the United States of America. And while I'm not overly familiar with his policies, I know I sure as hell did not vote for him, nor would I vote for him. I didn't even vote in the last election, and I kind of regret not having done so now that I see what type of time he's on. So I guess I have no one but myself to blame for this. But what I see with Trump's character is that he is exceedingly selfish. Now, is it true that maybe it's human nature to be selfish and maybe in a sense everyone's kind of looking out for themselves? I guess you could say that, but at the same time, these are impulses that we can and should learn to control, especially if you're going to run a whole fucking country, especially if you're going to run a whole country that is as powerful as the United States of America. And I apologize if it sounds like I'm just ranting or venting right now, but when I saw that news article, and I don't even watch the news like that, but when this news article found me, when I found out what Trump had done, I kind of had a sinking feeling. And I know that most people probably had the sinking feeling when he won the election. But again, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I was actually kind of rooting for him. Not in the sense that I wanted his policies to go through, but because, well, at the end of the day, if he won, what else can you do but hope that he doesn't ruin the country? But what I've quickly realized in observing his character, again, not his policy, just his character, is that this is not somebody who should be running a country like the US, really any country at all. And furthermore, he is most certainly not somebody who I want representing me to the rest of the world. Now, is this video going to make any sort of difference in terms of Trump's day-to-day life or what policies get passed or don't? No, probably not. Probably not. But not making the video isn't going to help anything either. And as we travel around the US and we observe all of these different areas, a lot of the places that we've driven through, I mean, right now we're sitting right inside of the Indiana state line between Ohio and Indiana. Most of these areas that we're driving through are places that voted him into office. The city that we're in right now almost certainly voted for Trump, by and large. And look, I'm also not the kind of person who likes to make snap judgments on people's character based on who they voted for, because I understand that depending on an individual's circumstances and also understanding human nature and the innate desire for self-preservation, I understand that they had their reasons for doing so. Do I know what those reasons are? No. But I can't help but think that when I see these people smiling in our faces and exerting this sort of friendly demeanor, I have to wonder how much of that is actually genuine. Because if behind closed doors, these people can see someone like Trump and resonate with him to the extent that they feel inclined to vote him into office so that he can represent them, if they feel like he is a good representation for them and their character, if they feel like Trump is who they want to represent them to the rest of the world, I kind of see why people would feel a little bit hesitant or uncomfortable around these sorts of people. Now, again, I don't want to make any snap judgments because a lot of people have their reasons. Most people are going to have some sort of rational reason for voting for him. And maybe it comes down to policy or whatever else. I don't know. I'm not a politician. But what I do know is that it literally boggles my mind that he won the election. When I look back on it, and again, this is in large part because people like me were so arrogant in thinking that there was no way he could win, that we didn't even take the time or make the effort to vote. I don't know if I would have been able to vote from overseas or if that wouldn't have been possible, but I was overseas, to be fair, when it happened. And I also kind of established pretty early on after moving overseas that I would not move back to the US. But look, we've seen a lot of the US thus far. We're only about a third of the way through our trip. But although this country has a lot of upside, there's a lot of potential, as long as Trump or anyone like him is in office running this country will never see its potential. If anything, it'll see its negative potential. And I'm so glad that we have booked tickets out of the US, because I do not want to be on this sinking ship. I do not want to be on this sinking ship. I can't swim. I cannot swim, and I'm not going to take the time to learn how to swim to deal with all of this bullshit that Trump is inevitably going to put this country through. And it's not just Trump, by the way. It's very likely his whole entire administration. Again, I'm not a politician. Really, I don't even know what I'm talking about when it comes to politics, but I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to character. This is not somebody who I think is a good representation for most Americans. I hope I'm right about that, but it seems like, I mean, when I see that people are voting for him, I have to question that. I have to question that conclusion. But again, I'm just ranting, I'm just venting. All I know is that Trump, if you're watching this, don't even worry about deporting me, because I'm deporting myself. And I would highly suggest, if you are somebody who resonates with the things that I'm saying, that you deport yourself as well, because there are a lot of other beautiful countries out there, the Netherlands being just one of many, that you can go live in and carve out a very high quality of life for yourself, a much higher quality of life than you could ever have here in the US, unless you are Trump or anyone else in his circle, or basically in the 1%. I would highly recommend that you book a plane ticket, even if you just go on a vacation overseas, just to see what I'm talking about. Because look, I think most Americans, they settle for this because they just don't know. They're just unaware that there is better out there. I'm here to tell you that there is better, and I have made countless videos showing you that there is better. And that is something that I will continue to do moving forward.